Hey everybody, it is in the spotlight tonight, and I'm just gonna wait here for a few people to hop online. It's just me tonight, and I want to talk to everybody tonight about really just the spiritual journey and where everybody's at. And if you have any questions or you want to have conversation about your own spiritual journey, that let's just talk about it. Let's have conversation about it, because it's something that's so unique for absolutely everybody. And I know when I started on my spiritual journey, I find it funny because we've all been on this spiritual journey our entire lives. Hi, Carrie. And yet we all have kind of a defining moment as to when it's a spiritual journey for us. And I would say that my own spiritual journey started back in 2006. And the way I always describe it to people is it's like you have this light bulb moment. And in this light bulb moment, it's like everything absolutely makes sense. And you feel excited and you're like, I can't wait. I'm going to go on this spiritual journey and I'm going to understand myself and heal myself and all of this sort of great stuff. And then shit tends to hit the fan a little bit. And then you get excited again, and then shit hits the fan again, and then it just seems to be this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth when you're on the spiritual journey. And I know it brings forward so many questions for so many people, and that's why I want to have this conversation with you guys tonight about where you're at on the spiritual journey. What questions do you have about it? What things are you struggling with? What things are you not understanding? And yeah, let's just have conversation about it. So I see we do have a couple of people on here. If anybody has any questions, comments, anything like that they would like to share, by all means, just start asking away and we'll see how the conversation flows here. If you're not sure about asking anything, just please go ahead and ask anyways, because there's really no wrong question, and we're all on these different journeys, and it's so unique to each of us. And I do believe that it's so important for all of us to be able to have people that we can reach out to who perhaps have been there, done that before, or people that we just want to have conversations with who are of like mind or who are open to hearing what the conversation is really all about. I know this is a what would be the proper word here? It's kind of a crazy time. That's what I'll call it. It's kind of a crazy time for a lot of people. And I just want to try and remind everybody to try to see the good that's happening in the world. I know on Facebook, you're kind of bombarded with posts of things that are limited. You're kind of bombarded by, it's like limitations, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is shutting, and this is shutting, and it's crazy. But I invite you guys to actually start looking at what is still available to us and what we have an abundance of. And it might just be that you have an abundance of time to spend with your family. It might be that you have an abundance of time to work on creative projects or to watch TV or whatever. But the more you step into gratitude, the more you step into what is actually right there for you in this moment. Hey, Crystal. The easier the energies will feel for you. And I don't mean to just completely bypass, hi Doris, everything that's happening around us right now, because it's very real. It's right here in front of us. But if you don't want to lose yourself in it, then start looking at what the good is that's coming out of this. So we can be in gratitude for our healthcare workers. We can be in gratitude for those who are working in the grocery stores. We can be in gratitude for everybody in the world who's self-quarantining or self-distancing, social distancing. We can be grateful that we have houses, that we have clothing, that we have entertainment. Like, there's so many good things that we can follow. There's so many good things that we can talk about. So let's talk about the good things. Understanding that there is shit that's happening. Yes, we get it. There's shit that is happening. But the more we focus on the shit, the harder it is for our energy fields to really truly be clear and to just kind of be in that openness state. So I know for myself, last week I was feeling kind of like this roller coaster of emotions where it was like fear was coming up, and then it was followed by like complete acceptance, and then love was coming up, and then it was like complete disconnection. And so I'm aware that all of these emotions are happening, and I get to choose what emotions do I actually want to run with here, and what ones do I need to sit back with a little bit and just go, okay, so why is this coming up for me? And just love myself in, okay, there's a fear here. I'm going to love this fear for a little bit. So I just invite you guys as we go through these next couple of weeks, to continuously look for what is good. What do we have an abundance of? Where are we seeing helpers? Where are we standing in gratitude and allowing ourselves to shift where the mind is focused? Because the mind, it's this crazy thing, but if you tell your brain anything, your brain, your subconscious mind will say, okay, we need to make that the truth. Okay, we need to find facts that tell us that this is the absolute truth. So if I was to say to you guys, imagine biting into a lemon right now and just feel all the juices filling your mouth is actually going to start salivating because your mind is thinking of biting into a lemon, and past experience has told your mind that this is sour, and so now your mouth needs to salivate in order to be able to hold on to that kind of sour taste, or I don't actually know why our mouths salivate with sour taste. But the same is true if you say to your mind, okay, so I'm in abundance right now, or I'm in the energy of love right now, your mind is going to say, I need to figure out how I can prove that this fact is true. If you say, I'm in fear right now, or I'm in limitation right now, then your mind is going to say, I need to figure out how this is true. And you start to see everything that matches what it is that you're looking for. It's the same idea with manifestation and stuff. If you say, I want to buy myself a yellow car, you're going to start seeing yellow cars everywhere because your mind is trying to make this fact true. So really, it's a good little slave for you to create the world that you want, but you just have to be mindful about what are you focusing your attention on. And if you're focusing on the fear, if you're focusing on the lack, if you're focusing on what's wrong in the world, you're going to just continue to see more of that. So that being said, I kind of want to get that out of the way because there's just so much energy that's being pushed into the coronavirus right now. I don't even want to say the word. But I do believe if we focus on what is right, if we focus on what is love, if we focus on what is in abundance, if we focus on our gratitude, then we can at least shift our own energies, maybe not the entire energy of the world, but we can shift our own energies within ourselves, which makes it easier for us to process everything that's going on. So, let's talk about your guys' spiritual journeys, and let's talk about where you guys have been, what you guys are going through now, and really just anything that you guys want to talk about. I know every week we kind of have this hot topic, but what's been coming up a lot lately with clients and stuff is I'm asking, like, where did you get started? How did you get started? Why did you get started? Like I was saying, my journey started back in 2006, and it started through a divorce. It was right before I asked my ex-husband for a divorce that I started watching a show called Starting Over. And it was an excellent show. It got canceled after 2 seasons, but I absolutely loved it. And the show was about these women who lived in a like a house, I guess, and there was 2 life coaches that lived in the house with them, and those 2 life coaches would help them get from the place that they were to the place that they wanted to be. And as I was watching that show, I was like totally taking part in the life coaching activities that the life coaches were bringing forward, and really just starting this journey of self-discovery and self-love and self-acceptance. And that led me to ask for the divorce and for me to start following my soul a little bit more. And I believe it's, Crystal, yours started with a divorce too, but mostly because of crippling anxiety. I get it. I absolutely get it. I feel like we all have like this one moment where we're going down this path, and then we start to realize on that path, either it's a health issue that comes up, it's anxiety that comes up, it's a depression that comes up, that makes us go, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've got this mask on and I can't lie to myself anymore. And it's in that moment that a lot of us actually step into what we consider to be a spiritual journey. And it's not that we weren't actually on a spiritual journey in the first place. It's just simply that we're now aware that we have a soul. We're now aware that our emotions matter. We're now aware that we want to actually start creating something better for ourselves and what our current existence is. And so for me, it was this starting over show and really going into this process of understanding myself and understanding what my past was, and really just bringing a whole lot of love. And then the next thing that happens on a spiritual journey is you start telling people, I'm on this spiritual journey, and it feels so great. And some people will be like, awesome, welcome aboard. I've been here for a while. And other people will kind of look at you like you've got three heads and go like, well, what do you mean a spiritual journey? And it's always funny to see that, because relationships will actually break off for people when they start to recognize what it is that their soul wants, and whether that's through a divorce or whether that's with a relationship with like a friend or family member or whatever, that there are people who will actually leave your life so you can get on this journey of self-discovery and everything else. And it can be a really beautiful process, but it can also be a very painful process for many as they start to lose people that they had considered to be in their circle or one of their people or whatever. And that doesn't mean that the people are wrong. That doesn't mean that you yourself are wrong for going on the spiritual journey. It's just the way things are. As things are vibrating, it's kind of like if you play the piano. If you play two notes that are directly beside each other, okay, because one is like a B flat and one is a C, it sounds like shit. Okay, but if you do like a G and a C, then it seems to work. If you do an octave of a C here and an octave of a C here, it sounds perfect. So as we're raising our vibrations or lowering our vibrations based on what energy we're in, how we're treating ourselves, what we're eating, that sort of thing, we can actually start to resonate or not resonate with other people around us. And again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just the way that it is. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it does not, and that's okay. And I think that's actually a big lesson for me right now, is about acceptance. And this has been something that's been going on for about 2 months right now, where there's like these situations that come up and it's so out of my own control. And in the past, I would have tried to do everything to try to fix it, and I'd feel all of these big feelings and everything else. And right now, I'm like, the universe just keeps throwing all this stuff at me, and I'm like, okay, cool, awesome. And people will say, well, are you mad? That's really disappointing, or that sucks, or whatever. And it's just like, it is what it is. And I can choose to be in the energy of acceptance right now and to just see everything that's coming forward and accept everything that's happening. Or I can choose to be angry and try to fight it while not actually having any control anyways. So it's been interesting to just sit back and go, okay, I accept this, and I accept this, and I accept this. And if anger does come up, then okay, let's look at the anger for a bit. But to know that when things are out of our control, we get to choose how we're going to react to it. And a lot of times how we react to it is not actually going to change the circumstance anyways. It's kind of like watching a sports game at home, where, you know, you're cheering for your team or whatever, and then they do something that doesn't help them win the game, and you can get angry and what the hell were you thinking and what the hell were you doing? It's not changing anything about the game. It doesn't matter how badly you're reacting to it, how loudly you're yelling, how much you're swearing. Hi, Jennifer. It's like it doesn't change anything. And so rather than getting kind of caught up in all of these like ugh kind of emotions, where you just go, okay, so this is the way things are right now. Awesome. Now I can say that that has not been the way that I've been my entire spiritual journey, because I have emotions and I have big feelings and I feel very passionately about a lot of things. And that means that part of my spiritual journey has been working on anger. Hey, Devin. Anger was a big one for me. Feeling alone was another big one for me. feeling rejected, not good enough, those kinds of feelings were also really big ones for me. And it's not perfect. I think that has been one of my biggest annoyances in doing this spiritual journey publicly, is that people think or believe or whatever, put this idea on that I've got my shit together, and I don't. And I used to try to show everybody that I had my shit together, and the fact of the matter is that I don't. And the more vulnerable I become, and the more I allow myself to show that this is what I'm working on, or this is what I'm struggling with, or whatever, it becomes easier for me to just be authentic. And I feel like the pressure that others have put on me is not as big. And maybe it was always just my own pressure myself that I was putting on myself, that I had to be this certain way. And I guess that's true for all of us. So Doris is saying, like, what's going on right now with living in a small town where there is not so many people, I find it easier to deal with. Yes. And then Crystal's saying, when I am vibrating higher, it goes super fast and it feels a little overwhelming, but then I ride this amazing high for a short while. Yes. Yes, Crystal, I totally get that, because even like when I meditate and stuff, it's like I can feel my entire body just vibrating at this energy. And yeah, it does feel a little bit overwhelming or a little bit excited. I guess kind of what way you want to look at it. For a long time, I always felt like I was overwhelmed by it. And like I had to bring myself back down to a normal level. But when I say to my body, okay, take me to my perfect balance, I get to still be there in that kind of high vibration while also feeling more grounded and centered within myself. So that might be something for you to try. So no one does, truthfully. I certainly don't, and I enjoy that. It makes life interesting. Yes, I believe that you're talking about no one having their shit together, Jennifer. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It is what makes life interesting. And yet it's something that a lot of us will put on people that are in the public eye or whatever, is that they're not allowed to make mistakes and they're not allowed to screw up and whatever else. Now, I'm not out there robbing banks or doing anything like that, but there's moments where I lose my cool. There's moments where, you know, I might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or whatever. And then this part of me kind of starts beating the shit out of myself, trying to make myself figure it out properly the next time. And what I've learned from that is just to have self-compassion, that the parts of me that aren't getting it right now are parts of me that are still needing to learn a different way of being. And I feel like that's something that's important for all of us to remember with everybody in our lives, is that we all have this different way of learning, and we're all learning these different things all of these different times. And so it's important for us to just hold compassion for everybody. I was talking to my 7-year-old today. We were painting, and he has like this obsession with gods and demons, and he loves demons just as much as he loves the gods. And today he was talking about the demons and how great they are and whatever else. And I was like, well, not everybody would share that perspective about demons. And he was like, yeah, no, I understand that. And then he went on to say, you know, Thanos is a demon and he's doing what he thinks is right. And isn't everybody just doing what they think is right? And I was like, yeah, you're totally right. Everybody is operating from this system that tells them that the choices that they're making is the right choice for them to make. Until in hindsight, you look back and go, oh, I should have chosen something different. And I can look throughout my entire life and go, yep, I could have done that different, or I could have done that different. But it feels like when I'm looking back, I can only know that I could have done it differently because I now have this greater wisdom of having lived a little bit longer and being able to look back. But in the moment, it's like, this is the only choice that I have. What else would I have chosen? What else could I have chosen? And we all lack this knowledge until we've actually lived through it. And then we're able to see these different perspectives. And so having this self-compassion and no judgment and that sort of thing for ourselves is so important. Crystal, I'm going to get to your comment in just 1 second. I just need to pull up the live here. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to lean in here because I couldn't see everything. So Crystal's saying, my life feels like a train wreck at the moment, but I see the big picture and can weather the storm easier. Not everyone can do that, so I pass down a lot of my personal experience advice, and I find that that really helps people. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Crystal. And I think too, especially when we're in all of the shit storm that we're in right now, that it's important to remember that not everybody has an awareness. I know last week when I was feeling really bombarded with the energies of everything, I was like, shit, what about people who aren't even aware that they're being bombarded by energies? How do they get through this? And again, it's having this compassion, because if I didn't know, how much harder would it have been for me to experience it last week? Rather than someone like, because I'm able to know, oh, I feel the energies, okay? So that feels like it's coming from outside of me. It's not actually me right now. But someone who's not aware of that energy being separate from them, or that they're even feeling it, they can get so caught up in it and lose themselves in it, whether that be like with anger coming up or however they might lose themselves. It's really completely individual. Yes. And Jennifer, yes, Crystal is absolutely amazing. She really, truly is. Um, and so as we're going on this journey and we're making sure that we're having compassion for people, even people that we don't agree with, that's a huge part of the spiritual journey. And I feel like there's like this point in the spiritual journey where you gain this spiritual ego. And so it disguises itself as being this like ultra spiritual person. You know, we step into the spiritual journey, we learn a little bit, and then we grow this ego. And the ego is like, I'm more spiritual than this person because I'm doing this, or I'm more spiritual than this person because I eat vegan, and I'm more spiritual than this person because I have my rose quartz crystals or whatever. And it's all such bullshit. And I will call myself out. I was totally one of those people. And then you start to look at these areas where you're like, well, fuck, I'm not that spiritual in this, and I'm not that spiritual when it comes to this, or I totally lose my spirituality. If I get angry, anything that I knew spiritually is out the window. And so pay attention to your spiritual ego, and pay attention to when are you in judgment of other people, coming from like this spiritual place. JP Sears, I think it's Sears, maybe it's Spears, I don't know. Anyways, he's like this long-haired redhead dude, and he makes these really, really funny videos on Facebook and YouTube and stuff. You guys check him out. He does one that's called Ultra Spiritual. And in the Ultra Spiritual video, he shows himself judging people and really kind of looking down on people who are not doing things the same way that he's doing things, and him thinking that he's more spiritual than other people. And as soon as you have the thought that I'm more spiritual than you, yeah, I know Devin, he absolutely cracks me up too. The moment you think I am more spiritual than you is the moment that you've stepped out of your spirituality. Because when we're in this energy of all being one, when we're in this energy of all being connected, understand the guy that's pissing you off is a part of you. And it's up to you to understand why it is that this person is pissing you off, and what is it within yourself that's needing to be loved, that's needing to be looked at, that sort of thing. And sometimes it could be, this guy's an asshole, but can you come to a place of acceptance that this guy's an asshole and not let it affect you? Okay? And I mean, it's easier said than done, but it's still something to be hyper aware of as we're going on these spiritual journeys, that anything outside of us that's triggering us is often a reflection of what's going on inside of us, or a part of ourselves that we have yet to fall in love with, or yet to just be okay with actually having. Hi, Shelly. And so I invite you guys, as you're going through these next couple of weeks or whatever, just have compassion for people. Love people for where they're at, knowing that not everyone's going to understand what you have to say, and they don't have to. Understanding is something that you just need to bring to yourself. So as long as you can understand why you think the way you think, why you are the way you are, and love yourself for the way you think, the way you see the world, the way that you're putting yourself out there, that sort of thing. That's the only thing that actually really matters. It's self-love. And in that self-love, then that love actually gets to go out to the rest of the world as well. So you're actually doing you and the world a favor by just loving on yourself. Yes, absolutely, Jennifer. Know your triggers and be okay with it. My triggers, people lying to me, pisses me off. Pisses me off. And I understand why it's a trigger for me. People stealing from me, that pisses me off too. And so stealing and lying, to me, they're in the exact same category. And I understand why they piss me off. I can look at myself. And so in understanding triggers, one thing that I can offer for you guys is to look at, how do you react when that trigger happens? For myself, if someone was to steal from me or someone was to lie to me, I would act like a 2 or 3-year-old that is having like an ultimate meltdown and just like cry, yell, stomp my feet, like anything to have someone hear my point of view and to understand how wrong this was. And when I look back, okay, so when I was 2 or 3, what happened? Did someone lie or steal from me when I was 2 or 3? And in my experience, that is actually what happened to me. I was molested by a babysitter, and the lie was that he was going to take care of me. And the stealing was that he took that part of me, you know, that soul energy, that pureness, that innocence or whatever, by doing what it was that he wanted in that moment, rather than thinking about how might this hurt someone else. And the energy of that is very much like a thief, in that they'll take what they want because it makes them feel better without any regard as to how that makes anybody else feel. So I understand the trigger now. And in that trigger, I would feel powerless. Well, am I powerless if someone steals $5 from me? No, not really. I have an abundance of flow from the universe. I can always make $5. It's not that big of a deal. But in the energy of someone stealing, the trigger was really about everything I was losing inside of myself, or feeling like I was losing inside of myself, because that 2-year-old that I once was, that was molested, is still needing to be seen and loved and heard by me, and needs to have a voice and feel powerful in that situation. And so it was about stepping back and making sure that I was creating that for myself and healing that part of myself from a period of time where I was not able to feel that or experience that in the way that I needed to. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. With any trigger that you have, to ask yourself, how do I react? You know, do I act like a 2-year-old? Do I act like a 7-year-old? Do I act like a teenager and roll my eyes, or whatever the case might be? And in that, then bring love to yourself, to whatever experience you had that allows that trigger to make you react so big. Because a lot of times what we're reacting to is not the experience that we're having in that moment, but rather we're reacting to an experience that we had in childhood where we didn't have the voice, or we didn't have the words, or even a way to name the emotions that we were having. And so we go back to those same kinds of reactions. Like I said before, if you guys have any questions, or you guys want me to go in a different direction here, by all means, ask your questions. And yeah, again, the whole call tonight is talking about spiritual journeys and what that means for you. If you have any questions about your own spiritual journey, by all means, just throw them on here. And yeah, let's get chatting. So as we're going on these spiritual journeys, I'm trying to think of everything that I've experienced, or the ups and downs and everything like that. And it's so varied and it's so different for everybody. And yet it's all kind of the same for everybody as well. And that's what I find to be so fascinating about it, is you can talk to anybody about their spiritual journey, and the experiences themselves are different. And yet the emotions and the struggles and the love and the happiness and connection and everything are all very much the same, which to me is a huge way of saying we are not alone in any of this. And I feel like for some people, when they do start on that spiritual journey, especially if they haven't surrounded themselves with other people that are also on that spiritual journey, it can be a very lonely place, because you're taking away all of these old stories that no longer resonate with who you are, and you're figuring out who you are for the very first time. And that's a very beautiful thing. However, it can feel a little bit lonely. And I do believe it's important for people to reach out to other people who might be on that same path, to make sure that you're not feeling alone on what that journey is. For myself, I was really, really blessed. We moved to Kitchener-Waterloo in 2007, my husband and I moved in beside a woman who was also on a spiritual journey, and we would walk to school together and we would talk about this. And at first, I mean, we probably walked with each other for about 4 months before we started talking about this whole spiritual thing. And we were both kind of like, oh, really? You do this too? Oh, really? And then the conversation blossomed from there. And then I was able to meet other people along the way, and the community that we have in Kitchener-Waterloo is just, it's freaking incredible. There's so many amazing people here. And I'm sure it's the same everywhere. This is just my experience. There's so many amazing people who are willing to chat, who are willing to ask questions and answer questions and support each other. And I am so grateful for the community that we moved into, because I do truly believe that had I stayed in my hometown, I wouldn't be able to actually be where I am today, because the energy there is just not the same as what the energy is here. And that doesn't mean my hometown is a bad place or anything like that. It's just like, this area it's so incredible. And the more you talk to people about what these truths are for you, about what your spiritual journey means for you, the more people you're going to find. And it's like we all gravitate towards each other like flies to honey or something like that, because I feel like it's that connectedness and that knowing that once you've found someone who is on this spiritual journey or self-appointed spiritual journey, that you're finding people who are also open to working on themselves, to looking at these deeper perspectives, to really just allowing themselves to, I'm going to say, create changes in their lives that are more in alignment with their souls. And the more you connect with people who are in alignment with what their souls are wanting, the less friction there seems to be in those relationships, because people are just honest with themselves. So yeah, self-compassion, compassion for everybody, love for everybody. Open your hearts and just be vulnerable and show people who you are. It seems like it's so simple, and yet it's something that so many of us struggle with. And the more we talk about what we're struggling with, the more we talk about what is going so easy for us, the more we just talk, the more we can start to see the humanness in all of us and love the humanness within all of us as well. So what are you guys? It's like a sixth sense. We do gravitate towards similar folks. You're absolutely right, Jennifer. We do. And I think it's so crazy, because there's so many people that I'm connected to now that I have no idea how we first got connected. And some of those connections are totally bizarre. It's like the universe just starts conspiring to go, okay, we gotta set these two people together. I had an experience a couple of years ago where, with Johanna Generational Healing that I created and teach and whatever, a lot of my students kept saying that they wanted to take it into the Indigenous community. And I was like, I have no idea. I have no connections. I have no idea how to even do that. And then I was at a fair and I met a woman who is an Indigenous woman, and we talked and I told her about it, and she showed me some art that she had created, and she was just a beautiful soul. And that was that. And then like 3 months later, she got this new job, and then she invited me into her workplace to work with the people that she works with, which is an Indigenous organization, to help bring healing to their community. So in me saying, I don't know, then the universe was like, we're gonna connect you and this stranger at this fair, and it's gonna lead to a beautiful relationship. And that's just the way the universe works, is if you're looking for some sort of connection, if you're looking for an answer to something, just throw out there, like, I don't know, universe. You guys take over. You guys point me in the right direction, and the universe will line things up if it's meant to be. And if it's not meant to be, then they'll bring you something better. And sometimes we get so caught up thinking, ugh, this was meant to be, in my soul, in my ego, I think that this was meant to be, but it's not happening. But sometimes it's because, that song by Garth Brooks, Unanswered Prayers? Sometimes those unanswered prayers and those unanswered requests that we put out to the universe, when they don't happen, it's actually because your soul is leading you to something even greater. And the universe is like, we've got something so much bigger planned for you. So if you could just hold on a little bit, we're going to bring you this something bigger. So don't get caught up. If things are not working the way that you thought that they should be, don't get caught up in it, because most likely there's a part of you attached to your ego still that's going, this is the way it has to be. And it doesn't have to be at all. It's about letting it go and allowing yourself to just receive what the universe wants to bring forward for you. So Crystal's saying, I keep getting the call into my leadership role, but I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to lead. But Crystal, right now, you are leading a community to their own healing. Is it possible that you're actually already in the leadership role, but you're not giving yourself enough credit for the leadership that you're doing? Sometimes we think, or I know I do anyways, that when we have this purpose, okay, so we might say to the universe, what is my purpose? And the universe says to lead, okay? And we go, oh shit, okay, so how am I going to lead people? And we start thinking like, do I need to be up on this stage with thousands of people in order to lead, in order to stand in my purpose? And we make it into this really big thing that feels like it's almost overwhelming because it feels so huge. And then we can take a step back and just go, okay, am I leading right now? And Crystal's saying, yes, I am, but it feels bigger than that, if that makes sense. Yes, and that's exactly what I'm talking about right now, is sometimes we think it needs to be this really, really big thing. And then it's in that big thing that the fear starts to step in and the ego starts to go, I don't know if we can do this or whatever else. And so we start to retreat back from that thing that we're supposed to be doing. But sometimes, if you can say to yourself, okay, I am leading right now, can you accept that as being leading? And you don't actually know how big the seeds are that you're planting, or how big those are going to grow for you. And you could be planting an entire forest right now and have absolutely no idea, and leading one of the greatest changes in your area and thinking that it's not big enough yet. And that's an ego thought. If you have a thought, this is not big enough, that's the ego that's stepping in and saying, this is not big enough. Because your soul, it knows exactly what you need to be doing, and it's accepting it. And the universe is saying to you, this is what you're supposed to be doing right now, and you're leading people. And that's really all you need to be doing. It's kind of like this In the Spotlight series that I'm doing. When the idea first came to me, the idea was to have like a 3-day speaking. Well, first it was a 1-day, then I was like, oh, maybe a 3-day speaking event with all of the people that I know who all have a story to share. And I just think they're so fucking fantastic. And I wanted everyone to have an opportunity to talk and to really shine their light. But I kept putting it off because it was like, this is too big of an idea and I don't know how to get the people and everything else. And then in January, beginning of January, we signed my 7-year-old up for parkour, and the parkour class ran from 5 until 7:30, which kind of took out a 7 o'clock client, 5 till 6:30, which took out a 7 o'clock client and possibly an 8 o'clock client, depending on if I was able to get supper made prior to or not. And I was like, I don't know if I want to really rush that much on Tuesday nights. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just take clients out on Tuesday nights. It's not that big of a deal. I don't want to rush. And then a couple of days later, my husband's friend was over, and I really want to get him on In the Spotlight. So if you're watching tonight, I still want to get you on here, Darren. But I had said to him, I'm actually going to start this In the Spotlight series, and I'd love to have you come on and talk on this In the Spotlight series. And it was in that moment that I committed that I'm going to have people on every Tuesday night on the Journey Healers Facebook page to do this In the Spotlight thing. And this has been so much easier than what it what in my mind I was trying to create. So the universe wanted me to be this vessel to help other people share their stories and to help me to share my story as well. But I was not accepting that it could be something as simple as this. I was thinking it had to be something huge. And in accepting that it was something as small as what this is, I've been able to shift other people's lives and to help other people bring their stories forward to a brand new platform using just simply sitting down with each other and having this conversation. So I would invite you, Crystal, to really look at, are you leading right now? And are you trying to create something that is so much bigger based on what the ego is telling you you need to be doing, where your soul might be saying, you know what, just love me right now for leading what I'm leading right now. And if it's meant to be bigger, to understand too that it will become bigger, because what is meant to happen, what is meant to be, all of that sort of thing, it's not something that we need to like try and like drive forward or fight for. It's stuff that just starts to come easily because you're now in the vibration of actually receiving it or actually doing it. So, and Crystal, because I know that you do have young kids at home as well, and because I am a mom as well, sometimes the idea of doing something huge makes you go, well, what about the kids? You know? And by me doing this big thing here, with the In the Spotlight series, it allows me to still be mom. And that to me is taking guilt off of my shoulders and my chest, apparently, because I'm pulling that off of my chest about when I can spend time with my kids and when I'm not spending time with my kids. I'm just being me and sharing all my knowledge to people who come my way. And that's perfect, Crystal. That's exactly what you need to be doing. And perhaps there's a book in that. Who knows? Maybe that's how you're supposed to lead people. Or maybe you're renting out a like a Legion or a restaurant or something and leading people in that way, just based on what your own personal experience is. There's a blog post coming out this week. Yes, Crystal, exactly. Kids come first. Kids come first. And it's something that a lot of moms, especially with younger children, have, that we get stuck in that and going, you know, I can't do this because of the kids and I can't do this because of the kids, but do it in a way that works for you, but also works for the kids. And by doing these small steps, and you're actually growing something that's bigger for later on down the road. And there's so much stuff that I could share with you guys right now, but some of the stuff is kind of on the down low right now. But plant the seeds. That's all I'm going to ask you to do, is plant the seeds, water them, take care of them, and those seeds will grow into bigger and better opportunities all of the time when you're ready for them to happen. So Jenny is saying, hi, can you tell me how to manage the shift better or pain-free? That is or this is truly taking its toll. So Jenny, when you're talking about pain, is it pain in your body, or where is, like, is it pain in your heart? Is it pain in your body? I was saying earlier on the call today, to handle the shift better, and I assume that you're talking about everything that's kind of shifting right now. And if I'm wrong, then please just let me know. Anytime that we're shifting and anytime that things are changing very quickly around us, I feel, and take what resonates and discard the rest. Okay, so you're feeling it in your entire body. Do you ground at all, Jenny? Do you meditate at all? Because those to me are some of the most simplest things that we can do to start taking care of ourselves. Now, for people who suffer from things like fibromyalgia or autoimmune diseases or chronic pain, etc., it might take a little bit more than just, you know, sitting with yourself and meditating and grounding and centering and that sort of thing. But pay attention to what things are causing the pain in your body. And I'm not talking about physical things that are causing the pain in your body, but rather what emotions are you feeling that have you feeling more pain in your body than normal. Because when we look at the emotions that we have as humans, anything that we don't release or heal in a certain amount of time starts to manifest as physical pain in the body. And that's how we know that there's emotions and experiences that we've had that need to be released, that need to be healed. And Louise Hay talks about it in her book, You Can Heal Your Life. And there's actually a lot of different books on emotions in the body. Now, if this is the entire body, that sounds to me like that's like a nervous system reset that needs to happen, or possibly is happening. And when we get into that kind of, the nerves are shot, everything's in pain. That's where I say we need to take a step back and reevaluate everything that we're doing in our life, everything that we're experiencing in our lives, to really ask ourselves, what is it that my body needs now? What is going to stop this pain or minimize this pain for me? In what ways can I love myself or love my experiences so that I'm not getting so freaking caught up in what all of this pain is? Because basically the way the body works is we've got like our amygdala, okay? So that's like the alarm in our body. Anytime something stressful happens, that alarm goes off. And then it sends a signal to the prefrontal cortex to shut down, which then hits like a thermostat in our brain that shoots off the information that we need to get full of cortisol or adrenaline or noradrenaline or whatever. And that's really good. So if we get a bee sting, then that amygdala shoots off, it goes to the prefrontal, sends off the thermometer, and we get the adrenaline to the bee sting. The blood rushes there because it wants to help heal it, okay? That is exactly what it's supposed to be doing. But our brain doesn't know what is actually a real threat and what is a perceived threat or an emotional threat to us. And so when, say we have a fight with a boyfriend, okay? We might feel in our heart that our heart is broken. And it's not that our heart is actually broken, it hurts a lot right there in the heart center. And so what the brain will do is send all of this blood to the heart, even, and thinking that it's inflamed and that we need the extra blood there to help protect the heart. Well, it's just an emotional wound. But if we keep getting that same emotional wound over and over and over again, then inflammation actually does start to happen because there's so much blood pumping there. Eventually, that can wear us down and give us things like a heart attack or a stroke or high blood pressure or whatever else. And this is why it's so important to heal at the emotional level. Yes, we need to see doctors and everything else, but it's so important that we heal at the emotional level. A lot of times we're not even aware, especially when we're younger, we're not even aware of the emotions that we have in our bodies, nor are we aware how to hold space for ourselves, and sometimes not even aware as to words that we can put to the emotions that we're feeling. And so by the time we reach adulthood, our body's already taken a shit kicking emotionally from our brains firing off and feeling scared and everything else. And when we're in this kind of energy of the shift of the planet right now, there is a lot of fear that is happening. And I keep talking about the energies. When I was grocery shopping on Friday, and it was like the energies were like static electricity all around me. And even though I was centered, even though I kept grounding and, you know, trying to create that bubble around me, it was still like there's like all of this static energy around me. And so when things like this are happening, grounding yourself, recentering yourself, asking yourself, is this mine or does it belong to someone else? These are all things that can help to keep you on track with yourself. And honestly, you have to check in with yourself multiple times a day. And it might sound like it's a pain in the ass, but checking in with yourself multiple times a day. How am I feeling right now? What is this pain in my body trying to show me right now? And you can talk to the pain in your body. What is the pain in your body trying to show you? The more you talk to your body, the more you sit and listen to what it is your body is trying to show you, and then try to resolve that issue based on what it is that's coming up for you, the more you can actually start to release what some of that pain is. I know for myself, I have a bunged shoulder. I don't really know. Like I play guitar, I write a lot. I used to waitress and I'd always carry the tray on this hand. So this shoulder's taken a shit kicking. But when I asked myself with my shoulder, what energy am I holding on to, or what pain am I holding on to? The pain was the pain of responsibility of trying to do everything all of the time for everybody. And so I really had to step back and allow myself to be okay with other people around me being in struggle, or with other people around me not having everything right, and really just focusing on myself. My shoulder is so much better now. I used to have to get my husband to like press in on it multiple times a night. And when I say press, it was like dig your elbow into it or press your thumbs into it with as hard of might as what you can. Like I wanted him to use a crowbar on it once, because that's like, it just felt like it really needed to get in there. But really it was the pressure that I was putting on myself, which was making this shoulder feel like it was totally bunged. Jennifer's saying, I learned that firsthand. You need to deal with the emotional shit before it manifests physically. So glad I got a second chance to hear the proverbial knock on the door. Absolutely. And it's something like, I know it's still new agey for some people to even think, oh, my emotions might cause a physical manifestation in my body. Most of us look at the physicalness, and when we look at the physicalness, we think I need to just take a pill, or I need medicine, or anything else. And yeah, sometimes we absolutely do need medicine, and sometimes we do need doctors and everything else. And I encourage people to, yes, keep seeing your doctor, but also look at the emotional health of what it is that you're in right now. If there's been any stress, even if you've come out of stress, but now your body is starting to feel physically sore, it's also just as important to look at the physical stress, or sorry, the emotional stress that you've been in, because it might now be manifesting itself in a physical way in your body. And so when we talk about our bodies and we talk about healthcare, it's not that, Western doctors are a bad thing. We absolutely need them. It's not that pharmaceuticals are a bad thing. We absolutely need them. But we also need to use them in balance with all of these other measures that we can bring forward with New Age health. So there's meditation, there's talking to your body, there's talking to yourself and giving yourself that self-love and compassion. There's talking to a therapist or talking to a friend, or using different things like Reiki and reflexology and access bars and Ohana generational healing. There's so many modalities out there that can help us all to release what that pain is, especially if it's something that you're not able to access on your own. So Jenny's saying, thank you so much. I know I am holding on to some other people and their junk. Okay. So if that's the case, Jenny, then I would suggest to you, first of all, ask yourself, what am I holding on to that belongs to someone else? And if it belongs to someone else, return it to sender. It's not something that you need to hold on to. And for a lot of people who identify as an empath, it's almost like this kind of, I'm an empath, you know, so I'm sensitive to other people's emotions, and I can't, you know, I process everybody's emotions. I'm a sponge. I take it all in. And I've been there. I've done that, and it's fucking exhausting. Like, it is so hard to hold on to everybody else's emotions and process them for everyone else. And I met a woman last May, and she said to me, you know, empaths are people who will walk into a stranger's house, and in that stranger's house, they will find all of their dirty laundry and put it on and wear it themselves. And I was like, that is disgusting. I don't want to wear anybody's dirty underwear. And so I've become more aware as an empath to go, okay, so I don't need to hold on to, pick up on, or heal anybody else's emotions. I am not taking on anyone else's dirty underwear. And because it's disgusting. It's disgusting. When you think of someone else's emotions, it is their emotions. It is their dirty laundry. It's not something for you to heal. It's not something for you to hold on to. It's not something for you to just take home with you because you're an empath. As an empath, you can feel other people's emotions, which kind of gives you a bit of a one-up, because you're able to kind of discern what kind of situation is up around you. But if you're always taking in everyone else's stuff, you're not giving them permission to actually heal their own shit. And the more you focus on yourself and what your own emotions are, the more you can actually start to shift them, because you give them permission to start holding on to their own emotions and to start healing it themselves. And for someone who's been an empath for a very long time, or been aware that they're an empath for a long time, you've most likely brought forward a lot of people in your life who are wanting you to heal their shit for them, because it's easier. If I could give someone else all of my stuff to heal, life would be so much easier, instead of me having like a list of, these are all of the things I need to heal about myself. And then when you take that step back, when you give yourself the permission to really just focus on yourself, and I realize that it sounds like self-centered, but it's really not. It's selflessness, because you're willing to do all of that hardship work on yourself so that you can be there in a bit greater capacity for other people around you. But when you start that, the people that were feeding off the fact that you would take those emotions from you, they start to get a little bit like perturbed by it, and they want you to keep showing up in that same way. Take that emotion, take that emotion. I've had friends that have only called me when things were going wrong, and then I'd see them and I would get so tired and my shoulders would hurt that much more when I was around their energy. And it wasn't that they were a bad person. It wasn't even like I don't believe they were consciously calling me to go, I'm going to unload on you. But that's exactly what I allowed myself to do, was to just take on everything, and then I would have to process it. And it would take days sometimes, or knock the shit out of me, just to try and process their shit, which gave me no permission to actually process my own. Now it's like, I'm going to process my own stuff, and in processing my own stuff, it will give other people permission to also process their own stuff. But it's hard when it's your grown kids having problems, and so hard to stay out of it and help them make that choice that they are not sure what to do. So yeah, you can hold space for people. One of the mentors, I don't even know if I can call him a mentor, he's a speaker, a transformational speaker, and one of the things that he said last year on a call, and it really hit home for me, was, do you want sympathy, or do you want to solve what this situation is? Some people will come at us because they just simply want sympathy. They want to stay in the story that they're at, and they don't actually want to change it. And so they just want someone to sit there and go, yeah, that sucks. You know, and then there's other people who will come to you and go like, shit, I don't know what to do. And you go, okay, so do you want sympathy or do you want to solve it? And they say, I want to solve it. And then you go, these are my ideas. And they might take those ideas, or they might not. They might butt back and forth with you as to why this wouldn't work or why this wouldn't work. But they're open to changing what that situation is around them. A lot of people get addicted to actually having the problems and not wanting to change it. When it comes to kids, it is absolutely so much harder to hold that space and not want to jump in and be that superhero for them. I've got 7, okay? So he came with 3, I came with 3, we have 1 together. And it has been, that was part of my problem in holding responsibility for everybody else, was trying to keep all of the kids in these, you know, good moods and okay. And as they're starting to move out on their own, or they're going off to university, or they're becoming teenagers and really choosing choices that you don't necessarily agree with, it can be so hard to go, okay then, you do you. But we have to understand that our kids are not ours to own. Our children are simply people who came through our bodies, or however, or they came into your lives. They're young people who need guidance, but they don't need anyone to rescue them. You know, today on Ezra Street in Waterloo, there was supposed to be this big St. Paddy's Day party, and this has been something that has happened for as long as I can remember, and it's a huge crowd, like thousands of people, whatever. The police always come in, they dismantle people and whatever. And a lot of people were saying, these teenagers, we've got to stop them on this day. We need to make sure that they're not going to be out there because of the coronavirus and everything else. And people were like, oh, these kids, they're going to be so bad. And police have all these forces out and stuff. And then the news posted, there was nobody out there. And these kids were able to make a choice that was good for the whole humanity without anybody going, you absolutely can't do this. With our kids, we need to be okay with them making mistakes. With our kids, we need to be okay with them not knowing all of the answers, or by choosing something that we ourselves wouldn't choose. It is their journey. And I realize we're not supposed to treat our kids like they're our friends or anything, but ask yourself, would you be okay if it was a friend that was choosing this same thing? And if you wouldn't be, what's going on in you that makes you so repulsed by this idea of what this person is choosing, what your child is choosing? What are you afraid of? I can say this from experience in watching my own kids grow up. It is so hard, and you got to bite your tongue sometimes and be like, okay, I can hold space. I can allow you to make mistakes, and I'm going to love you regardless as to what those mistakes are. But this is your journey. And most of us, I know for myself, when I was a teenager going into young adulthood, anything that my mom had to say to me about what I should be choosing or not choosing was usually not something I wanted to listen to. And so I do believe it's so important for us to give our kids that space to make their own decisions. We have to trust that how we've raised them up until their teenagehood or into their young adulthood has been exactly what they've needed so that they can step into the world and they can take on whatever it is that they're getting themselves into. There was a quote going around on Facebook a couple of months ago, and I had my husband screenshot it and send it to me. The quote said, before you step in to help someone, make sure you're not interrupting their karma. Okay. Now, if we think of karma as being lessons rather than like you do good, you get good, you do bad, you get bad. That's for law of attraction stuff, but that's how everyone's seeing karma now. But if you think of karma as lessons and cycles, if you're interrupting someone's lesson, are they going to be able to actually learn that lesson? Or if you keep interrupting it by helping them, by saving them, whatever, are they going to continue to make the same poor choices because they need to learn the lesson in what that is? So it might be a greater consequence. It might be that they need to understand the struggle in order to be able to come out on the other side. It might be like for myself with the anger that I was holding on to, I had to really go deep into early childhood experiences and grieve so much. And it felt like it was so much crying. But in the past, people they would stop my anger. They wouldn't allow it to be there because it was uncomfortable. And yeah, rightfully so. Anger is uncomfortable. But in people not doing it and me holding this space for myself and going, okay, I'm going to let myself be angry and I'm going to sit with my anger until I go somewhere else, then I was able to access this grief that I was holding on to so much deeper. If people kept stopping me from being able to experience it, I never would have been able to get down into what that deep emotion really truly was. And so it's so important, instead of trying to save everybody, especially when it comes to your children, that you give them the space and you can talk to them. You can offer them your advice, but you also have to be okay with the fact that they might not take that advice and that that's okay, because part of it is going to be they need to learn. And yes, you know better because you've been there, you've done that, you're an adult now, you're wise, you've had children, you've watched them grow and everything else, but they haven't, which is why they need to be able to experience it. Sometimes, yeah, absolutely, Jennifer, healing is absolutely uncomfortable. Anybody who thinks healing is like this peaceful, lovely journey, they're wrong. Healing can be so uncomfortable. It's kind of like giving birth. Pregnancy gives you this glow, and then you go through this painful labor, but you get this beautiful prize at the end. But it's like doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's a beautiful process, but it can be painful. You're dealing with lifetime full of shit. It's going to be painful. So when you're talking to your kids, and really just talking to anybody, when you're talking to them, that you're giving them permission that it's okay for them to fail. It's okay for them to screw it up. It's okay for them to be wrong. It's okay for them to feel whatever emotions that you're feeling. As their mother, you're just simply holding space for them and letting them know that they're totally loved in what it is that they're experiencing in that point in time. There's nothing else that we need to do for them except for to let them know that they are loved. Because in every experience that you've ever had in your life, or that I've ever had in my life, the only thing I ever really needed was to know that I was loved, even in what my experience was in that moment, even in what my emotion was in that moment. I just needed love. And sometimes it's hard to give it to ourselves because we're so caught up in, oh, I shouldn't have done that or whatever, but we still need love in that moment. And your kids, if they come home and they're feeling shamed about something that they've done or a choice that they've made, they need love in that moment. I know it's not always easy. I know you can get angry, or you can get upset, or you can get confused by the choices that they're making, but it's still their choices to make. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, is that it's their choice. It's their life, that we don't own them. Even though we've given birth to them, even though we've raised them, even though we've fed them and washed their dirty clothes and everything else, we don't own them. And we have to be okay with them making whatever choices that they're going to be making, whether we approve of them or don't approve of them, that it is part of their journey. And sometimes it's hard to see the consequences that come up based on the choices that they're making. but to just simply love them in what those consequences are as well. That's awesome, Doris. I'm so glad that you let her know that you're there for her. And that's all you need to do. And if you're still worried about her, if you're still, feeling it in your heart or feeling it in your body, to ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario that could possibly happen out of what this experience is that your daughter is going through? And why are you so afraid of that happening for her? And then whatever that is that you go, so why am I afraid of that? Okay. And once you can get to a place of accepting that into your life, and it might be based on because you've experienced it yourself in your life and you still haven't been able to love yourself for experiencing that. Or it might be because that is too scary. If it was, so I don't know what your daughter's situation is, but say it was a health issue, and you're looking at death or you're looking at physical impairment or anything like that, it can be really hard to accept that or to not be afraid of what that is. But then to sit with yourself and love on yourself for what this thing is over here, to come to a place of acceptance of whatever this could possibly be. Like this whole COVID thing that's going on, there's certain things that we have absolutely no control over. And the more we can come to a place of acceptance with everything that is, the easier our lives become. When we try to react, when we try to solve, when we try to fix and all of these other things, we're actually like leaking out all of this energy and it's not changing anything. So like, is there anything that you yourself can do right now, Doris, that would change your daughter's situation completely? Because a lot of times we'll get lost in trying to solve something that we cannot solve that situation. And we had a situation in our family over the past couple of years where my husband and I were constantly looking to solve this issue and read books and read articles and talk to therapists and everything else, trying to solve this issue. And it wasn't until this past October that it was like, we can't solve it. And that's okay. And at first it wasn't okay. It became this kind of revolving door of, can I accept the fact that I can't solve this? Can I accept the fact that this might be the way that this always is? What do I actually have control over right now? And really the only thing that any of us ever have control over is our own inner emotions and how we're choosing to react to something. And I want to continue to use that choice to choose what our emotions are to something, because we can shift our emotions. A lot of us will feel the emotions come on and then we grab hold of them and we go, I'm angry. Something happened this morning, so now I'm angry and I'm going to hold on to that anger for the rest of the day because this thing happened for 5 seconds this morning that pissed me off, and I'm going to hold on to that. We don't have to. All we really, really need to do is go, okay, so this happened in this moment. Now I'm going to choose differently. And in choosing differently, then we can start to give ourselves the freedom so we can expand into a greater choice for ourselves. So Doris is saying it's a choice she has to make, but there are 4 kids to think about as well. Okay, so she's actually in the same dilemma as you, because now you're worried about her and what her happiness is. And she's going, well, I can't make my choice for my happiness because of these 4 kids that I need to think about. So what if you give her permission to just simply make the choice, okay, regardless as to how she might, regardless as to how the kids are going to be affected by it. Yes, we need to make choices that are right for our kids. I get that. But our greatest choice that we can make for our kids is to ensure our own happiness and our own joy, so that we grow kids who also know how to choose their own happiness and their own joy. Okay? If we say, I can't choose my happiness right now because I've got kids, it actually stops us from teaching our kids how to choose happiness or joy. We're saying to our kids, You are a burden that I'm holding on to right now, and I can't choose my happiness because of you. That's a very unfair kind of pressure to put on our kids. It's so important that we choose our own happiness, that we choose our own joy. Me doing these in the spotlights, like I was saying earlier, was because my son was doing this activity on Tuesday nights, and I didn't want to stop clients altogether, but then it was like, this would be a great way for me to fill my Tuesday nights. Gives me the permission to take him to his parkour activities, and to do that, I don't have to rush home and get everything set up. I've got an hour and a half to do that by the time I get home, or a little bit less than that, but that's perfect. And it brings me joy. And in that, it's teaching him that it's okay for mom to take care of you, but it's also okay for mom to take care of her. And sometimes mom's happiness is not going to bring you happiness, but in the long run, mom's happiness is going to show you how to choose your own happiness as well. So many of us get so limited by thinking we can only do what's going to be the best for our kids, but it's in that, and I'm one of those moms who used to choose that all of the time, was always choosing my kids over myself, always making sure the kids had prior to myself, always making sure that everything was all painted rosy gold for them, and then feeling burnt out myself. And I really had to take this step back to go, okay, before mom burns out completely, before mom hits an absolute rock bottom, I need to start taking care of myself. I need to choose my own happiness. And yeah, it might suck for you guys for a little bit, but I want you guys to be able to choose this happiness for yourself as well. Okay. And I mean, happiness is one of those fleeting emotions. It's not something that anyone can really hold on to. But it's something that we can choose. It's something that we can step into. It's something that we can, if you're giving yourself self-care, if you're taking care of yourself, if you're making sure that, say, you're reading a book or whatever brings you that kind of exciting energy for you, that in that's teaching the kids as well. It's okay for you to choose you. So Doris is saying, I know the choices she has to make is hard because I made the same choice when she was younger. Okay. So Doris, that's awesome. And sorry, I get excited when patterns start to emerge themselves and stuff because it makes it so much easier to work with. So I thought of myself first, and it was the best choice I made, and my kids are better for it. Okay, so you understand how easy it is. But now, Doris, I'm going to ask you, what guilt are you still holding on to that makes you worried for your daughter to make that same choice? What kind of support or love were you looking for when you had to make that choice that you would be able to provide for your daughter now, but also to provide for yourself now? When these patterns start to show up, oh, all right, hopefully you guys are still there. Okay, it's showing that it's still there. Sorry, my Wi-Fi kicked out there for a second. So when these patterns start to come up and you're like, okay, so I had to make this same choice back when my kids were younger, and now I'm watching my daughter make the same choice, and you're saying to me, how do you support, or it's so hard to support these kids when they're adults to make the right choices and everything else. Look at the parts of yourself that felt upset, or that felt disconnected, that felt abandoned, that felt alone, that felt unsupported, all of those sort of things that made these choices harder for you. Look at those areas from back when you had to make that choice and bring love to yourself in that moment. And by holding that space for yourself, I like to put my hands on my heart, which you guys can't really see right now because I'm sitting down too low. I like to put my hands on my heart and just really talk to those old parts or those past parts of who I was, so that I can bring that love and that support and whatever I was looking for at that point in time to myself. And in that, then that will actually be transferred over to your daughter as well. Okay. And yeah, you can show up and say those same things to your daughter, but she's not going to make a different choice until she's ready to make a different choice. Okay. And it can be easier sometimes to see from outside of the box and to think, I know what they're going through because I've gone through this, but her experience is totally different to your experience because it's her experience. And so she might have different things that she's needing to process before she's actually able to make that choice. But for you to remember too, that your kids were better for the choice that you made, which means her kids will also be better for the choice that she's making as well. Okay. Again, mom's happiness, mom's joy, or dad's happiness, dad's joy, because they're just as important too, is the number one priority in a household, okay? And as long as mom and dad can be happy, then that's going to filter down to all of the kids in the house as well, if they're choosing to allow it to, because it really does come down to the choices that we're making. And yeah, we still need to be there for our kids. We absolutely do. Um, we could, be selfish. And when I say selfish, that would be putting ourselves first absolutely all of the time without any regard for the kids. But in selflessness, that's the part of you that goes, I know that today I need to have a bath. And I'm going to listen to that call. I'm going to throw the kids in front of the TV, and I'm just going to go and have a bath for half an hour because I know I'll be calmer then. That's self-love, and that's selflessness, because you're doing it in the benefit of everybody else. You've got to fill your own cup. You cannot pour from something that is empty. You cannot pour from something that is bone dry or next to bone dry. It's really important for moms, dads, all people that are in like some sort of authority role with kids around, to make sure that they're actually filling their own cups. And actually, whether you've got kids around or not, I mean, as healers, as healthcare workers, as anybody who's being of service to anybody, to make sure your own cup is filled so you've got more to pour out on those around you. So Crystal's saying, my thing lately is letting my kids see me fail, letting them see that I am real and human and that I go through the motions like everyone else. What a beautiful thing that you're showing them. Because, in movies and stuff, we always see people succeed. And in life, we see people when they're at the top of their game, even on social media and everything else. We see the good. We see everything that's working out, and that's not always the way it is. And kids can be so hard on themselves when they make a mistake, when they screw up, when they don't get the report card mark that they wanted, or they get a bad test grade, or whatever the case might be. But if you can show them that, hey, we're all human, we all mess up. We all are learning. And yeah, some of us might be better at one thing, but it's because we've spent more time learning about it than what someone else who hasn't learned anything about it. So they're going to make more mistakes on it, And when you can show up and show your kids that it's totally okay to make mistakes, and to even laugh about the mistakes that we've made or whatever, or tell them this is how I learned a different perspective on it, it gives all of the kids permission to just be themselves and to not be so bloody hard on themselves for what it is, or for what it is that they feel like they're failing at. Because especially like, as we're learning stuff, aren't we such funny creatures? Because we all put this pressure on that we need to get it perfect. We need to get it right. We need to always be like on the ball or whatever. And it's so useless to have that pressure. If we, again, going back to that self-compassion, I guess that's what this entire call is about, is the self-compassion and making sure that we are loving on ourselves and making sure that we're loving on all others, understanding that everybody is learning constantly. We are learning and learning and learning, and to pat ourselves on the back a little bit more too for the things that we have learned, the things that we have done, the things that we have been great at. And yeah, I think I'm done. I just looked at the time and I realized we're like 20 minutes past the time of in the spotlight. But yeah, this was a really, really great flow tonight. So Doris, I hope that helps with your daughter and with her kids and with that situation. And Crystal, I really hope that you step into the leadership. And I think it was Jenny that was on talking about the pain in her body. And I do hope, Jenny, that you're able to release the pain that's in your body right now. For everybody that's on the call tonight who's going to be watching it later on the live, sorry, I keep calling it a call. For everybody who's watching, I wish you guys all of the love and happiness, and remember to look for what is out there, okay? So look for the abundance, look for the gratitude, look for the people that are helping, look for the compassion, look for the love, all of that stuff, because that is what you're going to bring more of in your life. And yeah, there's fear out there. Yeah, there's limitation and everything else, but that does not need to be the energy that any of us are in right now. So let's choose differently. And most importantly, have compassion for yourself, have compassion for your neighbors, for all of your loved ones, just everybody. Just think we're all just on this game, just freaking learning. So love you guys. Have an awesome night, and I will chat with you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I've got a friend coming on. Her name is Vered Seagal, and she's from New York City, and she is just like this high energy love ball. I just absolutely love her. So I hope you guys will join us next Tuesday as she talks to us about raising your vibe to up level your life. Have a great night, and I will chat with you guys later. Bye-bye.